Welcome to the Group Chat, a podcast hosted by Vic Kainth, Pav Toure and Sunny Singh. This podcast will talk about all the things that matter, right here and now. We'll discuss and debate what's happening in popular culture, music, dating, and the craziness of everyday life. You've officially been added to the Group Chat. We're in 2020. We live in a world where heroes are only seen behind TV sets. They fight their enemies with mythical powers unknown to our reality. In the Avengers, we have the ultimate fighting team of heroes, and they fight off their enemies with insanely out-of-this-world powers. In Game of Thrones, Daenerys Targaryen unchains slaves with the army of the Unsullied and her free dragons. And in Gotham, we have a orphan billionaire who's scared of bats and who would rather spend his time with the city scum than living with the rich and keeping himself and his money to himself. However, in our reality, our heroes don't wear suits of iron. They don't have billions of pounds, and they don't have magical powers. Our heroes bleed. Our heroes cry. Our heroes sleep. And our heroes feel pain. Right now, more than ever, we've called upon our heroes to protect us during this pandemic, the biggest threat to humanity most of us have ever seen in our lifetimes. Our heroes are the everyday, the very normal, key workers, and all of those from the NHS who have stood up to protect us. And today, we are incredibly excited to be joined by Zara Zaman, a nurse working in an intensive care unit and most recently within a COVID-19 ward. Zara, hello and welcome.
Hello, I absolutely loved that. I had a massive smile on my face the entire time you just said that. Very poetic.
I could see. And of course, those of you who can't actually see, we are recording this remotely, but I could see your smile through our Zoom call. So yeah, thank you for joining us. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me, all of you guys.
No worries. I hope that wasn't too cheesy. I mean, we love a bit of cheese, but I think you deserve it as well.
No, you know what I loved about it is because I knew all the references. That's why.
Yeah, you are a Game of Thrones fan, aren't you?
I'm a Game of Thrones fan, an Avengers fan, DC fan.
I wanted to say that because I've recently just finished Game of Thrones, so I was so hell-bent on saying that.
Oh, wait, but you said you're Avengers fan and DC fan, but which one, Marvel or DC?
Good question.
Ooh, you put her on the spot now.
Me? Is this for me?
Yeah.
Oh, Avengers.
Good.
Avengers.
Yeah, there's no hesitation.
Okay, Batman or Iron Man?
Batman, surely Batman. Oh my god.
Iron Man. Batman,
yes.
Batman, I've changed my views on with Batman.
If it wasn't for Robert Downey Jr., I think it wouldn't be Iron Man. Robert Downey Jr. makes Iron Man.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Agreed.
But Christian Bale was good though as Batman.
Yeah, he was.
He was.
But again, Iron Man takes it. So let me jump in with this. Zara, we're so happy to have you here because we definitely want to just get into a bit of a deep dive about you and what you do on a day-to-day. We really want to learn a lot about what you've kind of endured and the reasons of why you've become a nurse. So we want to have you tell us a little bit about yourself and what are your motivations and why did you want to become a nurse?
Yeah, there's a lot of reasonings why I've kind of gone into nursing, but when I look back, when that first moment of when I decided to pursue nursing at degree level, I've always just wanted to do a career which felt meaningful to me, and that's been my main motivation. I had originally applied for a completely different degree, when I was doing my A-levels. I originally applied to study economics and politics. That was my UCAS.
Nice.
That was my UCAS application, actually. So it's completely different to what I guess where I am now.
Yeah.
And I decided at the age of 18, when I had applied, I did my A-level exams and everything, I decided that summer that I wanted to withdraw my application. And it wasn't because I didn't love the topics that I originally applied for. It was just finding that meaning to me. If this was something that I wanted to do for the rest of my life, it needed to be something that I could wake up every morning to do, something that I would love to speak about to my friends and family.
And be proud of, right?
Yeah, I guess that's a nice way to say it, to be proud of within myself, because I need to be happy with what I do before I can even think about anyone else, and I wasn't happy. So when I was trying to find this meaning, and then I came across nursing actually through clearing, and I started to think about nursing. What is a nurse? Like, it keeps coming up, and in fact, when I started to think more about this, what is a nurse, I've got a bit of a personal story for it, which I think I've only realised, this year actually, with everything going on, with the pandemic and so on, and it's just kind of made me think about how crazy life can be when you've got a set, when you think you've got a plan and then something will happen.
Of course, spanner in the works.
And then it's only when you think about it, like, you think, oh my gosh, like, everything in a funny way, the universe has a funny way of getting to where you need to be in that exact moment, and you never really understand that until you think back. So if I think about one time, which really where I think about, okay, you know what, I'm going to pursue this career and be a nurse, is I think it was when I was 14. So I had a family member who was a very close family member who was very poorly in the hospital. I was very young, I didn't really understand hospital environment, what an illness was, and at the time it was in an intensive care unit, and all I knew was it was a very serious situation, and that my family member was being looked after. And of all the healthcare professionals, of all the people that were involved in her care, I will always remember the nurse, the intensive care unit nurse that was looking after her. And there was no task that felt too big or too small. And everything that nurse was doing was with a smile. And I was just in awe of her. And in fact, I will not forget how she allowed me to sit next to her. And I was very young. She allowed me to sit next to her and see what the work she was doing. And I could see the joy that she got when she was doing the work. And I thought to myself, when I was then deciding, I was like, I remember that, and I would love to feel that way, and how she was doing the work. And when I think about how I am now, I'm actually working in intensive care unit now, doing the same job that she in fact is doing. And
so essentially at that young age, when you saw this nurse, this is someone that you essentially felt like you saw yourself being in that person's shoes at some point, and you wanted to become that person that cared with a smile as well.
Absolutely. I think that's a really nice way to say it. You know, it's weird, right? Your nurses and doctors, whoever you go to the hospital, they're all strangers, but you can spend a couple of hours with that person and they can play a big part in your life, and you don't really realise it at the time. And I guess I looked up to her, and I guess that feeling that you get, it's amazing. Sometimes you've got to trust that, no matter what age you are, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's beautiful. I think it's definitely a kind of like a sense that I feel like at that young age you've just seen someone care for someone that you have a lot of love for, and you know that you're close with, and I felt like maybe you wanted to give back in the future, and you saw that this is kind of the position where you want to be in, so that you can really provide back, which is, I think, a great thing that you've done.
I think she also made me a bit curious as well. What was like it's not very easy, the work that she was doing, you know. But she just loved doing it. Like with the work that we do, and intensive care unit is, you know, very sick patients, and my family member was very poorly, and things like it's a stranger, right? Like we come from a background where we do a lot. We care for our elders, we care for our family members. No task is too big. But you know, this was a lady who was brushing my family member's hair. She was, you know, making her sheets comfortable. She was doing things that you would do for a loved one that you've built a relationship with. But this is in fact someone who has no connection to my family.
Like a stranger who you tend to just trust because they're someone who's there caring.
Yeah, and that was like, she loves it. She's made me curious, and I think now when I think back, I totally get it. I just totally get it, and it's just
Oh, that's great. Love that.
So yeah, that's my motivations, I guess. Going back to that one moment, and I guess my time in my time in A levels and where I was wanting to go in my life, because that's a very definitive moment, right? Your A levels, your GCSEs, deciding your career, and a lot rides on that. And I don't think I was ready until I guess I kind of took a step back and thought, right, I need to think about this properly.
That is beautiful to hear, to be honest. It's nice to hear someone who's actually got a deep emotional motivation for doing what they do. And I think a lot of people nowadays don't do that enough, do actually what they genuinely want to do, which is great.
Because we would usually often hear, oh yeah, I became a nurse. Why did you become a nurse? Oh, because my family said so, you know, or that they wanted me to be.
Yeah.
This is more of a personal connection as to, and a motivation as to why you wanted to become a nurse and what led you to pursue that, you know. So yeah, love that. That's great. It's so genuine.
So Zara, I have a question for you. You said you're a nurse. Can I just ask how long you've been a nurse for?
So as a registered nurse, when I got my official hashtag, I'm a nurse. So I graduated January 2019, so just about over a year.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's pretty recent.
So that brings me to my next question. How, obviously given the current situation with the pandemic and whatnot, how has it been for you being a nurse during this time? Like, do you have any interesting experiences of what it's like to be a nurse during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, so to kind of explain it very simply, the COVID-19 has happened. No one's expected this to happen, and it's come at a point in everyone's life, whether you're a healthcare worker or not, and it's kind of it's made everyone think a bit differently, and I guess put a halt to a lot of things, but also jump-started a lot of other things. And I guess for me, as a nurse, personally, I was kind of very set on what kind of field of nursing I wanted to go into. So I love surgery, so surgical nursing, and that's my background actually, and I love everything to do with it. And I was in fact, planning to think of different career options within that field. Now, when COVID-19 happened, was in fact the same time when I was applying for a new job, and it was within surgery. And within that same time, it was a very overwhelming point for me, because I was like so fixated on this, okay, I'm going to do this and that, and then if that doesn't work, then I can do this and that. But then the pandemic has happened, and everything that you had ever thought was in your hands just got completely destroyed.
It is such a crazy environment to be in, I think, because obviously Pav and I were in Cuba when this really escalated. And we didn't have a lot of internet connection out there, and we were hearing bits and pieces of what's happening in the news. I remember sitting at breakfast with Pav, and there was something on the news about how the stock markets had tumbled due to COVID-19. And it's funny, and we came back, and it was just such a different world from when we left, and we were only away for 1 week. And within a hospital environment, how quickly did things kind of change from the norm to what you guys actually going, okay guys, we need to get our shit together and deal with this?
Oh, very quickly. I would say, so like I said, like within the same week, I was meant to, like, I was applying for this new job, and you know, that was going there. And literally, as a matter of Monday morning, going on to shift, everything from when I walked into the hospital and seeing there was like a sense of quietness. Like there's always a busy environment when you're in a hospital, right? It's, you know, it's open 24 hours. We've got an A&E in the hospital that I work as well. So there's always some sort of movement, and there was different. And then when I was walking to my ward, I could start seeing signs of coronavirus, and you know, I was like, oh my God, like this is the words that I'm hearing on the news, and now it's come to the wards that I'm working on, my safe ward, my safe haven. And then I've walked in for handover, and I will not forget this, because I've got other things going on in my mind. And the first thing that the night nurse, when they do handover to the day nurses, which is when I came on duty, was, good morning guys, we have 2 suspected cases of COVID-19 patients in the ward, and we have a confirmed case next door. And I was in shock, because everything that you hear on the news is now here, and that's potentially going to be a patient.
It's something that had come close to home.
Yes.
It's now on your front door,
Yes.
and it's, you know, yeah.
So how did that... Sorry,
Go ahead, yes.
No, I was going to say, so how did that make you feel, knowing that given what everybody was saying about COVID-19 and how dangerous it is, that you're now having to work with these people and look after these patients? And obviously that's a threat to your own life as much as it is to theirs. So how did you feel about that? Like, what was going through your mind when they said to you, well, these are the patients and you're going to be looking after them and they potentially have COVID-19?
Like, what did you have to go through? Was there any training involved? Was there kind of like this this preparation stage or anything?
So when I first heard of, okay, now it's here, now it's in the hospital that I'm working in, I think the best thing that my hospital did, and the beautiful thing about it, was they understood that everyone felt the same. So even if you were the most senior in the hospital to the most, like, I guess, like, you could say just a nurse, like even beginner, or you can even say like catering, domestics, everyone felt the same, and everyone was raising like, we don't know what to do. So what was really good was we had daily briefings. Every single shift there would be a matron, so these are the senior nurses, I'll talk about nurses because that's what I know, coming in and speaking to us that, okay, if you are with a patient who has potentially got COVID, you know, we've swabbed them and we're waiting for the results, take this precaution, wear a surgical mask, wear gloves, wear aprons, okay, then you're going to do that. So there was always good communication. From my experience, people have different experiences, but from my experiences, that gave me the reassurance. And I'm really grateful I had a team and a manager who understood that, you know, we're going there to the patients at the bedside whilst they sit in the offices, but they felt like, okay, we know what you're feeling. And that helped me in the beginning stages. And then
that's definitely important to have, like, just to have that reassurance, like you said.
So important, and it means a lot when it comes from a senior manager who, I guess, isn't really doing the same job as you, because they're management, right? They're not going there. So reassurance from my seniors helped me with that feelings that I was having. I was very overwhelmed. That's how I had a lot of anxiety, because I didn't know what to expect. And when you see in the news, like, just as much as everyone was panicking, I was feeling the same. What I could see in Wuhan in China, you know, lockdown on that level, and I'm thinking, is this going to happen here? And what, you know, there's just the PPE discussion hadn't started yet, but what was going on in my first mindset was, I don't know what to do. I feel a lot of anxiety. I feel very overwhelmed. And then there more questions started happening, like, you know, what was my family going to say? What were my friends going to say? And I wasn't actually thinking of myself, I'll be really honest, other than I'm feeling a lot of anxiety, and then all the other stuff happened.
Like I said, hero.
Very sweet.
Like I said. Just on that point.
Well done, Sonny.
Thanks, guys. Smooth.
By the way, Sonny's very, very proud of his intro. He spent a lot of time on that.
I'm still thinking of that. Very nice.
I wish I was that smooth when I was sliding into people's DMs. It's not that smooth, honestly.
Oh, God.
Oh, gosh.
I just wanted to say, you hear a lot of criticism of the NHS on the news, Not right now, but you do hear, things going wrong and the NHS is doing this, and the NHS, one of the issues is it is incredibly underfunded as well. So that's just a point I want to make. And do you feel that perception has changed now? Do you feel people look at the NHS a lot differently and don't see it as, okay, it's just a basic, it's part of the basic governmental infrastructure, but now it's actually part of a necessity in life. It's more important than a gym. It's more important than some of the leisure activities that we pay extraordinary amounts for. This is a basic fundamental. And do you think that perception has changed now?
I believe that's a really important point. How sad it is that a global pandemic had to take place for people to appreciate our healthcare system. And the beautiful thing about the UK is our healthcare system is free, and it doesn't discriminate against your wages, it doesn't discriminate against your race or anything. It's meant to be a healthcare system for all. And if you decide to go private, that's your own choice. That's the fundamentals of what the NHS is. And it's so sad that a global pandemic had to take place where so many lives have been affected, so many lives from a health point of view, from a worker point of view, for people to understand that this is what we do on a normal basis. And when people ask me, what do you're going out there and you're working, you're in the front line and everything, I'll be really honest, I wouldn't change that. I'm still going there to do my shifts, and that's what I have been doing since I graduated. Since I was a student, I've been doing those shifts, and I've been doing the same work, and I've developed. So for me, what's important is, am I going to get now the protection so I can do my work properly? That's my concern. I'm still going to be a nurse, I'm still going to work with the doctors, I'm still going to greet my patients, irrespective of what illness they have, what race they have, what beliefs they have. And I'm grateful that people have understood the work that we do, but it doesn't change how I see the NHS or how I see my work.
Yeah.
It just makes me more appreciative of more appreciative. I would say that. I'm more appreciative of the work.
And like from my point of view, I think that kind of sounds like a true passion for your profession, and that's recognizable when you're like speaking of something that you care about so much, especially something that you're doing and you're dedicating so many hours to, so I understand there's a lot of emotional connection there, and you also need to put your mindset in when you're in that place, and you have to kind of like adapt to whatever's going on.
I think I'm a very passionate person.
Yeah,
no,
you are.
That's good. That's great.
You are.
You'd rather have passion than go into a job day to day and say, "Oh, I can't be asked."
Absolutely.
Zara, just a quick question for me, and please feel free not. Like, if you don't answer this question, you don't have to. The whole PPE discussion with the government not being able to order enough or not being able to obtain enough, how was that kind of felt within your ward? Were you guys concerned that you didn't have the tools that you needed to do your jobs? Not to just do your jobs, but to do your jobs safely. Was there a sense of sort of anxiety? Was there a sense of if I can't get the right equipment, I can't do my job and people are going to die? And that sounds quite blunt and horrible, but am I right? That is the reality of it?
Oh, absolutely. So there's been a lot of discussions on PPE, and I think that was a very big topic from the news point of view, from March, if we go back to March and April. And PPE is so important for us because, like I said, we want to do our job properly, but we have to do it in a safe way because, we still have to go home to our families, to our friends, and we don't want to put them at risk as much as we don't want to put ourselves at risk, because we've seen we were still understanding the virus, we were still understanding the impacts it would have on patients. And when I moved to intensive care unit, I moved to an intensive care unit where there were COVID patients. It was actually labelled as a COVID ITU. So just a bit of background, so for anyone who's listening and that doesn't understand what ITU is, intensive care unit is where the sickest patients in the hospital will go. The sickest patients at the hospital are your COVID-19 patients. So our unit had transformed from an 8-bedded to a 20-plus bedded intensive care unit. That's a very big jump. And they
And how I remember we had this discussion on the side, but how much are these beds, especially more of these beds?
Yeah, so we're talking about triple the amount of beds. So that's triple the resources. And my hospital, I would say, is very small on average. So when I say triple in every sense, if we've got more patients, that means we need more staff. That means we need more PPE. And if we're going to have more staff, and especially staff members like myself who had to be redeployed from a different area to support intensive care unit, I've got these anxiety. I'm like, okay, I am definitely working with COVID-19 patients now. It's not a suspected case. These have been swabbed. They have come through A&E. They have had a chest x-ray. They are showing everything that we know so far about COVID-19. And now all of the patients, so it's not just a side room where you can isolate, all of them there have it, majority, okay? How do I do my work without putting people at risk or putting myself at risk? So PPE was a very big topic, and ITU is a very high risk environment. So if we're not protecting ourselves, if we're not having the equipment, we can't do our job. And everyone felt the same. I remember there was one instance we ran out of masks, and there was, so we all take breaks, obviously we have to take breaks. And I remember coming back from my break and there was no masks there. And there was this sense of panic because we're not entering the unit unless we've got a mask on. And there was then we started to pile up outside this unit, and all that was going through, I remember all that was going through my head was, I need to go and do this for the patient, I need to go and do this, I need to go and raise this to the doctor, I've got so many things to do. I'm looking at the time, and every time you spend away from your patient is very critical in intensive care unit. But what's stopping me is the mask, because I need that as well. So it's just like, it was like, there's no pleasing us. We can't go and do our job.
Yeah.
So PPE is so important, and it still is very important, and yeah, we can't do our job without it.
So you guys must be quite annoyed when in the news there were people that were stockpiling PPE, just regular people, not nurses or anything. And I remember reading the news somewhere, and one of them said, well, the NHS should have prepared and planned. That must have been quite annoying for you guys to hear, surely.
Yeah, I'm annoyed just hearing that.
Yeah, it was in the news. It was a woman. She had stockpiled loads of masks and stuff, and she said, someone said to her, like, why don't you donate it to the NHS? They're obviously running short. And she was like, well, they should have prepared in advance. I'm not risking my life.
And to be honest, now when you think about it, that's pretty ridiculous. Like, the public or people that don't really need this stuff are stockpiling on this stuff because they're so selfish and, worried about themselves when they're going to lock themselves in their homes anyway.
Yeah, exactly. But then I guess also they don't really understand. I mean, just listening to Zara now, like I get a better picture of what the hospital environment is actually like versus what I thought it was like. So I guess for a lot of people, I mean, I'm not saying they were right in doing what they did, but I can see that actually if they were probably listening to this conversation now, maybe they would give the stuff because you realise how important it actually is.
I think people fear what they don't understand, and I think it was very clear for a lot of people around the UK and perhaps around the world. They didn't understand what was going on. There was a lot of hearsay. There were a lot of aunties sharing shit on WhatsApp. Thinking like, where did you get your medical degree from?
Did you guys see the video? Did you guys see the video where one of these aunties was like, to get rid of COVID, you need to get an onion. And you need to put dark masala. You put dark masala on there. That'll get rid of it.
It's stupid. It is stupid. But people, especially Indians, they don't understand, and also they don't understand the severity of the situation, which is crazy, But I'm not defending them, Zara. I'm not defending people who stockpiled shitloads of toilet roll.
Absolutely.
I'm just saying I could perhaps understand the behaviour, and I can understand why people become so scared because they just don't know, and you fear what you don't know.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, Pav, going back to what you said, like, I can look at that situation, I look at it in two ways, and it maybe depending on my mood is what I would probably go with. So the first thing is, yes, it does upset me and it annoys me because for those masks, there's different types of masks. Like we've advanced in that way that, you know, you've got different, there's distinctions between face coverings and face masks. So,
Okay.
but that's only come now because a global pandemic had to take place for people to have the education, right? But the first thing that I guess, I get annoyed hearing that because we were so, we felt vulnerable in the hospital and we felt helpless. You know, these are very big words I use, but that's how I felt. And I never thought I'd ever experience that in my profession. No one wants to feel that way, right? Whatever you do, you don't want to feel helpless, you don't want to feel vulnerable. And, you know, that's what I was feeling. And the masks are very important. And what people didn't understand was with the masks that we use, the medical masks that we use in the hospital, people were stockpiling on those. And you have to be fit tested to have those masks anyway. So you have to undergo a test where they specifically, you try and fit the mask around you. And if you pass that test, that means that mask works for you. And if you don't pass that test, you try a different mask. So a lot of the people who are stockpiling these masks don't realise it's probably not helping them because it's not tested.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
We actually
I
didn't know that.
That's quite.
I mean, I didn't know that.
Do you know how many people that I've seen wearing a mask, they've covered their face but not their nose?
Yes, that's stupid.
Like, so
Like, it kind of defeats the point. Like, what are you doing?
Or when they talk to someone, they put the mask down. So
Yeah, like, it just defeats the point.
absolutely.
It's somewhat like stupidly become a fashion thing. Like if we come back to weddings, people like who are getting married still
Yeah.
are actually designing these masks, and it's like, you know, it's supposed to
Or-
match their outfit.
Or Kim K's
people are
got
like,
a branded mask out. hasn't
Oh
she?
yeah.
There
Yeah.
are branded
Really?
masks. Don't mess with me. There are branded masks.
Yeah.
I've seen these ads pop up on Instagram.
Yeah,
Ridiculous.
she's put up.
And
a
imagine
branded
how
mask.
much they're selling these masks for.
Actually, it's not that bad. I think it was like £5 a pop, and it was reusable or something like that.
Okay,
That's
but
that's
again,
hearsay.
that's all
I don't know
marketing,
that
isn't
for
it?
sure, but it was something like that.
Just, you know, you'd
Yeah.
rather, I don't know, but that's my opinion. I won't say it. Never mind.
Designer masks.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could look at it like making a bad situation good. Like, okay, at least like let's embrace it, right? So, you know, if it's gonna get people wearing masks, I'd say go for it. Like, if that makes you happy.
I mean, it's creativity. I might get myself.
There
a
you
mask and do a
go.
bit
Next
of design
Maharani piece, right?
on a mask.
There you go.
So, just wanted to ask a quick question. Post COVID-19. So, what do you think the world will be like post COVID-19?
From a healthcare point of view or from a generic point of view?
From very generic, from a generic point of view, what do you think will change after this pandemic?
I think people wash their hands more, which I'm very happy about. I think people, like, I'll be really honest, I always wash my hands before eating and after eating, and I would observe my friends that they don't do this. So I think people are going to be more conscious about hand hygiene and what they touch, and I guess keeping personal space, which is probably a bit difficult in London because it's such a busy environment. But I think awareness. I'd like to think people have more awareness.
The UK does
Personal
not
space doesn't
understand
exist,
that
right?
at all.
So I would like to think more people are more educated, which is a good thing, and they understand about these things. But do I think much will change? I'd like to be positive that I'd like I guess people would be more conscious, but I don't think much will change. I think people would still want to meet in large groups, and people would still want to go and do things that brought them once joy, because meeting your friends in large groups is what people do. Or I guess UK culture is to meet in after a hard work shift, or after 5 p.m. and you go and socialise, and people have missed that.
Like every Friday night, the bars are packed.
Or Wednesday,
Sunny.
I don't know, if you go Liverpool Street, you see like all of the pubs, right? They're packed, it doesn't matter what day it is. So I think people have missed it. So I think they're going to go back to it, and they might, I hope they might abuse it because they've missed it so much.
Do you think there'll be a second wave?
Because of that.
We won't hold you accountable for this.
No,
It
this
doesn't
is
happen,
so.
don't worry.
I would like to think if a second wave was to happen, it would have happened already. But but I believe when go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, that doesn't mean you can go out like we're not currently in a pandemic right now, anybody listening to this.
Yeah.
I think that is a misconception that people aren't really understanding. People are kind of thinking from the news or what they're hearing that that it's all lifted, that in their minds that they can just go out now, and things are all swell and good. But
and I think the example to take away from that is Beijing at the moment. So, they've gone and entered into a lockdown, and that speaks volumes, right? China is where this virus originated from. It might have been from a different city, but look how it's gone and affected another large city. So unless we all listen to what the guidelines say and we take precautions, this second wave, there could be a second wave, a third wave, the fourth wave, and we'll keep going around in circles. So I like to think if it was to happen, it would have happened already. However, that's not to say it won't happen in a month's time or any other time.
Just on that point, I think the one thing that COVID-19 has definitely changed for me is the idea that prior to this, and this may sound selfish, but I bet you any money 90% of the people listening to this are thinking the same way. Anything that's happening on the other side of the world doesn't affect me because it's not happening here. And I will be the first one to admit sometimes I would disregard something that's happening on the other side of the world because it's not affecting me here. Now, I think my perception has changed, and I hope to think that everyone else's perception has changed, is if there's something that's happening on the other side of the world, we as people together need to go and fight it there and then and sort it out before it spreads everywhere else. And I think that's the best way to prevent something like this from happening. Like if we had known Wuhan was having a massive outbreak, like us as the Brits should have people over there going, okay, let's help contain this, let's help fight this and stop this at its source, as opposed to waiting before it hits British soil.
So one point I want to make, Sonny, is there's been a pandemic like this before, but it was like over 100 years ago. So if another pandemic...
Is that the Spanish flu or something like that?
Yeah.
I think it was,
Yeah, so if another pandemic happens in another 100 years, the people that will be alive at the time wouldn't have gone through what we've gone through now. So wouldn't it just be history repeating itself, and then they would disregard it just like you disregarded it, and even I did, to be fair. And it would just be history repeating itself.
Speaking as not a politician and someone who's watched House of Cards twice, I would like to think that it's the government's job right now to introduce procedures and policies right now which other governments moving forward need to follow and adhere to, so they are aware that should this situation happen again, you know how to deal with it. Same thing from a medical background, Zara. I'm very, very sure that there will be medical articles in journals that will come out to help future doctors, nurses and medical practitioners on how to deal with a similar scenario. And I think it almost sets precedent, doesn't it? What you do right here, right now, sets precedent for the future generations. And I think this is what we need to do and learn from it, because look, if this happens again, fool me once, okay, fool me twice, I'm a fucking idiot.
yeah, absolutely.
Straight up.
I was going to say, you said everything so heroically, right? And so amazingly, so inspirational.
Thank you.
Because you touched on a really important point, which is humanity, right? We all live in this world, and just because what happens on the other side of the world doesn't mean that you can't feel for them or you can't do something about it. Can I share a story, actually?
Of course.
That I think really sums up what you just said, because you're absolutely right. We are all guilty of feeling this way, and it can be on a small scale of, if it doesn't affect, or it's just because it's affecting them doesn't mean that it's going to affect me, to a large scale, like a global pandemic. So the very first time I ever heard the word COVID-19 was in fact when I was looking after a patient. And I was in a side room and I was just dispensing their 6 o'clock medications, my routine. And we had first heard about COVID-19 in Wuhan, China, on the TV that was in the patient's room. And I remember the patient telling me, I will not forget this, because exactly what you had just said is what I have come to realize is that, you know, there's more meaning to everything that's happening. The patient turned around and said, oh, it's really terrible what's happening in China. Will it happen to us here? They're asking me. And I had the answer of, yeah, you're right, it's terrible what's happening at the moment, but I don't think it's going to come to the UK. And then fast forward 2 months is when everything just escalated in the UK. And when
You're standing there in a COVID ward 2 months later.
Oh my God, with people.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And that's when you realise, just because it doesn't affect you, look at around you, understand what people go through, because you just never know. You could be in that same position and people could be looking at you like, oh, look what's happening in the UK, let's hope it doesn't come to here. And
yeah.
I guess because people also like to feel comfortable and safe in their own little environment, like, you know, keep their own little circle safe and not worry about what's happening other places, because you feel like, oh yeah, they're somewhere else, they'll have people around them, it'll be fine, they'll figure it out. But that's not necessarily how the right way to think about it, you know. Like, we are all human beings, we are all people on this one earth, you know, and so we should be more aware and, you know, helpful of each other when we can be. And I think social media did play a big part in kind of sharing a lot of information that we didn't know about, and maybe
right and
like
wrong information,
when Pav was
whichever
talking,
way you want to see it.
I mean, right and wrong information, some of it, you know, questionable, I think, the way that it's being put across a lot of the time, because again, it is social media, it's a bit of a shit show sometimes. But I think, like how Pav said, you know, that another thing took place about 100 years ago. They didn't have this sort of like place where people would go to for information or find out what's happening or what they can do to kind of like resolve it or stay safe, you know, and do all that kind of stuff. But now we do, and maybe in the future when this does happen again, you know, God forbid, but we can't ever, you know, predict it, that there will be other resources put in place that would fight this a lot quicker.
Just have you guys seen Pandemic on Netflix?
No.
Okay, so I watched this. It's a show, of course, about a flu pandemic and how we would deal with it. And funnily enough, it came out, I think, towards the end of 2019, and I watched it in early December. And I remember them saying, if we were to have a pandemic now, in this modern day and age, we just would not be able to cope, because unlike in the past where we had the Spanish flu, they did not have the mass movement of people, hundreds and thousands of people flying around on planes every single day. That's why this is spread so quickly. And I think we really have to be careful, and we really have to understand that it's almost like pouring lighter fluid on a fire. Like, this mass travelling, you know, it just spreads so quickly. And I don't know what my point was about saying that, but I just wanted to tell people that I was watching this. So I'm going to end this and move on to the next question that we have for Zara.
So let me jump into this, because now we've kind of like really like understood what Zara goes through and what she's like had to endure, you know. So I mean, Zara, like being in such a mentally demanding job, I understand like day shifts and night shifts are very draining. It can take a lot out of you, you know, naturally, in any job kind of like this, that's asking a lot. And I just want to know, like, is there any routine that you do in order to prepare yourself before going into your shifts? Like, what gets you pumped? What, for instance, any music that you listen to, or something to kind of self-motivate yourself before you go in to save the world?
To work my shift, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like this question. I think it's taken time, but it's all individual, right? What makes you happy, what gets you pumped before you go and do go and do something. So with my shift work, yes, it is demanding. I'm gonna say that it is long hours. It's taken me a long time to get used to it. There was a time I really, I'm gonna say, hated long hour shifts, because it's you know, you wake up before everyone else and you go home when everyone's, you know, already home. And it took me 3 years to kind of figure out what works for me. And that's just being honest. That was my time as a student. So if I'm working a long day shift, I know this is going to sound a bit cliche, but you need to get a good night rest the day before. You have to reset.
Absolutely.
It starts from the day before to reset your mind. And what I kind of do, I love music, so I listen to music which makes me happy. And that could be Bhangra, that could be like a random song I heard on the radio, Bollywood or English music, it doesn't matter, whatever makes me kind of relax, right? And puts a smile on my face. So that can be totally like random stuff. So, and sitting with my family or talking with friends that I know will listen to me, and I enjoy this, like speaking to them as well, to help me relax. And then when I go for my shifts, in the morning, I purposely get up a little bit earlier so that I'm not rushed, because that can also cause a bit of stress before you go. So waking up, I think at least 40 minutes before gives me, like, it's a bit of a task, right? You're already up so early, but I know that's what's going to help me in the day. So I kind of like get rid of that negativity. Like, no, I need to get up because I want to get dressed properly. I want to do my hair nicely. If I'm feeling braids today, I want to do that plait. I don't have to be in a rushed way when I do my routine. If I want to eat breakfast, I can eat proper breakfast then. So creating that 40 minutes extra before you start your shift, in addition to what you would normally do, helps. And when I'm on my way to work, again, I will listen to music, or just sometimes I don't play anything. Maybe just being quiet to help reset my mind and give me that motivation for the day is what helps me. And then night shifts is just completely different as well, but the same principles. Just whatever you can do to set your mind before you start, that's what you need to do.
I think people really underestimate the importance of a good start to a day.
Absolutely. And food.
And food, yes.
So Zara, I have a
always
question
very
for you. You touched upon earlier on about the anxiety that you felt going into your, sort of when you went into your job. Given the situation now and post COVID-19, how do you think people should deal with the anxiety that they're currently feeling? Because I have loads of friends who are feeling anxiety even though they're not working in hospitals, and they're still scared to sort of get it. And how do you keep positive? And what goes through your mind, and how do you stay on top of everything?
I hope that I'm not that friend, Pav.
No, you're not. Don't. You're not. I have more than one friend, guys.
No, really good question. So anxiety, I'll touch upon that first. Anxiety is a really tough emotion to experience, and everyone can feel it differently. You can feel different, you can feel high anxiety or low anxiety, but whatever it is, you feel that, right? I think it's important to accept when you are feeling that way. No, okay, I'm not feeling good right now. I'm feeling a bit stressed. I am thinking too much. I'm overthinking. I'm feeling empty. Understanding your emotions is the first step always. Know what you feel, because then you can then articulate that, or at least try to articulate that. I think what helped with my anxiety is speaking with people I trust.
Okay.
So, and that's really important, is trust. So that doesn't mean it's my best mate, or that doesn't mean it's my family member. That could be someone who I know I can speak to them, and they're not going to judge me on what I say. They're just going to listen. Sometimes it's so important just to listen, and I don't need to. yes, of course. And it's sometimes I don't need your advice. Sometimes I don't need to be told what to do. I just want to say, this was a really tough shift, and I had this patient, or I had this colleague, or actually I felt like I didn't do something right, or
almost just to vent and let it off your shoulders.
Yeah. With a person you trust. So that could be a senior nurse who is going to get what you say, or that could be, your neighbour. Okay, maybe not your neighbour, but you get what I mean. It could be anyone, right? If you've got that vibe with your neighbour, then whatever. But that's important. Someone you trust. That's the golden word. And how I stay positive. I would say I'm a positive person.
Okay.
But that's because I've understood that in order to be positive, you've got to experience the negatives of life. and
For sure.
gives you appreciation that let's take the pandemic for an example. That's a very negative thing that's happened, right? It's people, it's affected the whole world. People have been very ill from it. People have passed away from it. People are unable to come to the hospital to see their loved one. Your whole routine has stopped. Very, very, like you can think of all of that, you can channel that. Or you can start thinking of the positives. Well, actually, it's made us a greater appreciation for the NHS. There wasn't a lot of emphasis on that. Actually, I've gone and spoken to my grandma over the phone more. I've built better relations with my family members to check up on them. When I work in the hospital, I check up on my colleagues a bit more. Like, are you okay? Like, how's your family doing? Or, I saw that you were really struggling there. Do you need help? Like, you can build a bit, you can work on that positivity. So I think understanding, there's negativity stuff. How are you then going to make it positive?
It's helped us almost appreciate the things that we really took for granted, and we spoke a little bit about that in our last podcast, Freedom in a Lockdown. So yeah, I think we completely get exactly what you mean, Zara, and it's good that you've sort of managed to understand the importance of gratitude and the appreciation for the positive things in life. Otherwise, this lockdown can really play a massive toll on you.
I think it's also good that you've accepted the reality of how bad the situation is and looked to improve
spot
on
on,
it.
Pav.
I think there are people that just don't want to accept it, and I think they get in themselves into like a mental rut where they don't want to accept it, and then they feel down about it. So well done to you for doing that, especially under all the pressure you're under.
What I definitely love about what you've said is that when you're on shift, that you're like acknowledging other people, your colleagues and stuff, and doing that, just like the simplest thing, like a smile or a question, just to check up on them, can really like change their day and uplift their mood for the whole rest of their day as well, because they feel like they have someone who is there, who understands, who's sharing their experience and really like caring for them as well while they're on shift. So I think that's very important. I wanted to just kind of like really like tell the people about what you're doing at the moment as well. Like, you've just recently started a nursing page, so this is part of you progressing. This is you really putting down your kind of like journey for people to understand and see and share your experiences with, and what you've learned. So tell us a bit more about your page and why you actually wanted to start the Instagram page. It's Nurse Zara, by the way.
What the name of the Instagram page?
On Instagram.
Oh, fine.
Yeah. Nurse underscore. Is it Nurse underscore Zara?
No, it's called How to Become a Hero.
Wait, I should
Wow,
know this.
guys. What episode are we on?
It's Nurse Zara underscore UK.
It's just my name. So I guess kind of what you've already said, all about just sharing experiences. I think you can learn a lot from people when they have the passion to share what they're going through. For me, very simply, I saw a lot of pages there, like medical pages, and I never really saw anything aimed at nurses. And I kept thinking to myself, it'd be great if there was a page where, there'd be a nurse who was, sharing her experiences or what she goes through. Or it'd be great if I could message someone on Instagram who, I could ask any question to that wasn't my university lecturer, but someone who has actually been a student and actually gets what it's like being a student nurse and what's a bit like working in the NHS. Oh, it'd be great to just see what hospital life is like for, on the wards or in the community. And then I kept thinking that to myself, and then I realised, well, what's stopping me from doing that? What's stopping me from being that person? I've gone through that same experience, and I would love to help someone. I would love to, answer a question to someone who's, that's been playing on their mind. That was why, that was a really big reason why I had started the page. And then from there, I thought of different ideas, different posts that I want to do, and I just hope it continues in that way.
And that's great. You're providing like a bit of education from your end as well, from things that you've learned, and providing that for younger nurses is right. Like people who will end up looking up to you for some sort of advice and kind of following your sort of day to day when you are on shift and how things go, right?
Well, I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. I hope they can take some sort of thing from
great.
there.
Zara, I just wanted to change the conversation a little bit. So there's been a lot of information in the news about how ethnic minorities and South Asians are more likely to catch COVID-19, and including people who are from a Black and African background. And I think those who understand the situation, I think we understand this is not necessarily about race. This is more about economic class. I think it's very clear that, it's more down to, whether you're from a slightly more disadvantaged economic background, you are more likely to catch COVID-19 because you're probably less likely to understand the severity and the seriousness of it. You yourself are from an ethnic minority background, and I'm sure there are a lot of other nurses and doctors in your hospital who are also. So my question is, with all of this going on in the news, and I think the news has played an enormous part in this COVID-19 pandemic, how do you feel as someone who is from an ethnic background, working as a nurse in an NHS ward, when people are saying, hey, if you've got what you've got, which is you're Asian, you're more likely to catch it?
Yeah, this is a very important topic, very important and topical at the moment, because we have seen a majority of cases of COVID-19, and in fact cases where people have passed away as a result of this virus, affecting more of people from Black and ethnic minority groups. And I believe we're still trying to understand the correlation from it. But to my understanding of it, there are several factors, like you've touched upon, the economic factor. So the most affected area within London is in fact the East London population, and that has a very large population of Asian and ethnic minority groups, and we are the most affected. There was Nightingale, which was also built as a makeshift hospital, which is in the heart of East London as well, and it makes you think that this is a very serious thing. So how I felt was, like, I guess that first feeling of when COVID happened, like, what is this? Like, why is this happening? And it gives you that anxiety that we don't really know the answer to it. We can speculate, we can try and understand, okay, the economic factor seems to be that they're from, lower class backgrounds. I'm being a bit careful with my words because, everyone's so diverse, but this is the facts, right? Also, from a social point of view, we live in a more overcrowded area. Tower Hamlets is one of the most overcrowded places within London, and we've seen a lot of cases coming from there. And you can even argue that's no one's fault. I mean, look at the apartments, look at how close the buildings are, look at how people live, look at the families as well. Like, look at it from a social point of view. They have very big families, because in Asian culture we are known for that. We have big families, and yet does that automatically is suddenly putting us at a risk? We never thought of that when we were, when people plan their families, right? We never think about that when we have functions. That's just part of our culture. We love integrating with one another. When you think about it from our health point of view, we're a pretty unhealthy race, unfortunately. Like, we have
it's all the oil and spice we eat.
It's the gulab jamun, it's all that
exactly
jalebi,
it's all the deep fried food. It's the our food choices aren't great. We are a race which is known to have heart disease at a very early age, or diabetes, all of these diseases that you hear, and it's there. So therefore it puts our generations to come at a risk, because we have this heritage of these diseases that have run in our family. And so when we are then presented with a virus which doesn't discriminate against your colour or your race or anything, that is what's affecting us because of all these other factors. There was a situation where we had to do a risk assessment. So I was doing this last week when I was on the ward. The matron came to me and said, okay, we're doing a risk assessment on COVID-19. So this is, in simple terms, how at risk are you? What's the likelihood of you getting COVID? What's the risk? So you have there your age. Male men are more likely to get it. So your gender. Sorry, guys, but
Careful, Pam.
but okay, so like age, your gender, your if you've got any comorbidities, so if you've got a previous health problem, those sort of things. Okay, that makes sense, right? Like, sort of things. And then one of the options is if you are from a black or ethnic minority group. So I had to tick that because that's I technically go into that. I do. It's not technical. That is me, and I'm just like, the other things which will make sense to you on an articulating point of view, like, okay, yeah, your age, your health, your gender, I guess.
Yeah.
But this is where I was born, right? This is what it is.
That is crazy. And let's be honest.
Having to tick that, did that make you feel a little bit targeted in any way?
It made me feel. I felt a bit confused, I'll be honest. But I understood that because I went and tried to make sense of the situation. Like I've said, well, actually, if you look at the health of, I guess, people from Asian backgrounds, the health isn't great. If you look at the way that we live, it's, the virus doesn't necessarily agree, it doesn't go well with the virus because you've got large families. So you just have to articulate the situation and it makes sense. But I felt a bit confused. I did feel a bit, again, you used the word targeted. I did feel a bit like, oh.
Let's be honest, it's not because you're Asian or you're a certain race. It is because those races just have typical stereotypes that we do, right? We're an unhealthy background, tick. We let's face it, especially if you're Punjabi, you drink a lot, and let's face it, a lot of us smoke a lot. Well, I don't smoke, but there are a lot of Asians that do smoke.
Yeah.
And all the health, the health
complications
the diseases,
that come with it.
Yeah, and the diseases like diabetes that are so common with Indians and Asian backgrounds and Pakistani backgrounds. So, it's not because of race. It's just because we just get up to shit that makes us like that, which is crazy when you actually put it into perspective. But it's so true. You can identify characteristics from race. You can.
Yeah, from our race, from our actions, from the way we live. And I guess on the surface of it, like Vic, like you said, if I just looked at that tick box, like, oh my God, that's me, I'm targeted, I would feel really crap.
Or categorized in that little,
if I think about it, like Sunny's now just said, actually there's so many different factors to it. I think you can make it really positive. You could then think about, okay, how am I living? What are my choices right now? Or even so, feeling a bit brave, looking around your parents and your family and your cousins and all of them and thinking about what they do, and that can help you not feel these emotions, and that's not good for you to feel that anyway. Try and always make sense of the situation before reading it on the surface is what I'll say.
Great advice.
So, being Asian, ethnic minority, I mean, it's not always a bad thing. I mean, I think we're pretty talented.
Yeah, by the way, we're not saying it's a bad thing. We're just trying to, digress
Yeah.
We
into
love
the
our culture.
situation.
We love our race.
Yeah.
Yes.
And saying that, loving your culture, loving your race, like, Zara, you're not just a nurse 24/7. What else do you do? As far as I know, there's something very much creative that you get into that is a big part of your life. So, tell us.
I like the way you said that. So in my free time when I'm not working, I love dance and I love dancing Bhangra. And Bhangra has played a really big part in my life from, I would say, university. And
Brilliant.
I love everything about it. and it's just my hobby.
Let's be real, you are a professional Bhangra dancer.
Yeah, I think I would say that. Yeah, I've competed.
Good.
I have competed on stages across the UK. So, and I identify myself as a competitive dancer as opposed to, I guess, someone who necessarily like does gigs or performances. I like the competitive aspect to Bhangra, and I have always been attracted to that. But not only that, I love what it teaches as well. And I know this might sound a bit cliche, but Bhangra has taught me a lot about discipline as well because of the competitive vibe of it. And I love the culture. I do have a Punjabi background, but I've, met other people from an Indian Punjabi background. It was a little bit different to me. And I loved being able to learn about other people's culture, and also through that learning about other people's love for the dance as well. And I don't think I would have had that experience unless I did dance in Dance Bhangra, I guess.
Definitely, and I guess that's your getaway, as well as having such a serious job. You get to enjoy and really have this outlet to your life as well. Much like we do, we have our own jobs, and yet we play dole as well. So that's kind of our yeah, big up Pure Drummers, but big up Zara Zaman for being amazing Bhangra dancer as well. But no, I love that you have this thing that is so like a different part of you, that people can still kind of relate that, oh, this is Nurse Zara, but she's not just a nurse, she has this whole colourful aspect to her life, which is beautiful.
Guys, go follow her on Instagram. Her page is sick. I love. There's this really good picture of you wearing your scrubs, and then you're in a Bhangra outfit as well. Right next to it, it's just two sides of the coin that you just would not ever imagine.
Yeah, and Zara, how fun is it dressing up in your vardi?
Oh, I think the vardi is just I guess makes it.
Can you just explain what that is?
Okay, so
Sunny doesn't know what vardi is.
I don't know what a vardi is.
Really? Okay, a vardi. Okay, it's it's a uniform, right? Is as in that is the word.
So your Bhangra outfit.
Bhangra costume, yes.
Okay.
Costume. Yeah. So what we wear when we perform. Like what you guys wear with your purple vests and the sparkles. There you go.
Did anybody else listening in knew what that word was?
I'm sure some people would know.
I'm going to put a poll. on
maybe
Instagram. Do you know what a vardi is? Yes or no?
Okay.
If it's no, you are my people.
Oh, very
brilliant.
nice. Yes.
No, but we love that you have this side to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it is a big part of your life, so that's very important.
Yeah, I think with Bhangra as well, I guess it just shows, which is what I wanted to show through my page, do not let your career necessarily define you. You are more than what your work is, and you are allowed to have a life outside of what you like. I'm passionate about my work, but I'm passionate about other things as well. I'm allowed to love other things, and that's okay. And it can be to me, dancing Bhangra was very spontaneous, and it came at a point in my life where it really helped me, and also my family never thought I would go into that. So it was very much you just go with it, and that's what makes me happy, and it's still with me even years later from when I started dancing. So yeah.
Sounds amazing. So do you have any competitions, well, obviously not coming up, but did you have any competitions that you were going to be competing at?
So I've been involved in a project called World Class Bhangra, and actually Vic is involved in this project as well.
He is, yep.
Who's Vic? I don't know. You're not
Vic again, creative lead. So this project, World Class Bhangra, as competition, came about, and we launched it this year. And it's a new competition aimed at professional Bhangra teams. And this competition is set to also attract other Bhangra teams across the world as well, which is quite a nice aspect to the UK Bhangra scene,
awesome.
Because that's not really been highlighted as much. So we really set out to do something differently, and I know Vic we both have the same vision because we're both part of the same team in making this vision
This
come alive.
World Class Bhangra is actually the reason why me and you are friends right now.
Through Bhangra, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, through Bhangra.
Yeah.
That's what made us friends. Yeah, which is great.
Absolutely.
But
yeah.
definitely. So this competition is hopefully going to be taking place at the end of October, and I know as well we've had to endure a lot of problems and hiccups along the way because of COVID. Thanks.
Thanks, coronavirus. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so
so the
do you
competition
guys,
is set to take place then.
sorry, I just want to say, how can people get involved with World Class Bhangra? Do you guys have an Instagram page? Where do we find out information on the next event?
So we do have all social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, even YouTube, and it's with the tag of World Class Bhangra at World Class Bhangra. So at the moment we've got our teams lined up for the competition. So we are progressing with different stages, and of course in the lead up to the event. But at the same time, we place a lot of importance on safety, and we place a lot of importance on making decisions that will benefit not only our dancers and our teams, because they are our integral part to the competition, but we think beyond that to our audience as well. So we are at present, with the COVID-19 going on, ensuring that we can still proceed with an event that's safe for all, and of course looking at the guidelines, because they are changing every day, which has also been a little bit frustrating, because that's what the virus has taught us, right? Any plans that you had, it's no longer a plan. That was the plan. It was no longer to be a plan, basically.
Plans out the window.
Yeah, so of course when you plan an event, you need to have structure and organisation to it. So we just are waiting to see what the government say about event spaces, festivals, cinemas, which hopefully will be revealed around August time. And then that can help us, fingers crossed, and then that could help us proceed with making this the best competition that the UK has, and the world, hopefully.
I can't wait for you guys to get back up and running and get this started, because it sounds like a really, really cool event. And I know Vic has been really excited about it. He's been telling us about it. So, I hope you guys get it up and running soon. So, Zara, we're going to do a quick fire round of questions for you. And this is where we get to know you. This is where our listeners get to hear about little things that you might like or not like, and get an insight into your personality a little bit. So I know Vic was super keen about this. So we've come up with a list of 10 questions. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to really quickly ask you these questions, and you kind of just need to say the first thing that comes into your mind. So, are you ready?
Yeah, I am ready. I'm excited for this.
Amazing. Okay, they're going to start off. Some of them may be pretty standard. Some of them might be a little bit more invasive into your life. But let's go.
Okay.
You ready?
Right, let's do this.
Question number 1, tea or coffee?
Tea.
Question number 2, sunrise or sunset?
Oh, sunset.
Okay. Question number 3, Apple or Android?
Android.
Oh,
Full
I hate
stop.
you.
Yes! Finally.
Pab, you just bought a MacBook Pro. Don't say finally.
But I have a something to
Traitor.
say.
Okay. What is your go-to lunch or snack during your breaks?
Oh God, I'm hesitating. I'm not allowed to hesitate, am I? It's gonna sound really bad. Like, not bad, but like a bit boring. Anything fruit. I love fruit.
Fruit. Okay. What's your favourite fruit? That was not on the list of questions. I'm just asking you.
Oh, my favourite fruit. Pears.
Okay. If you could teleport anywhere in the world right now, where would it be?
I would teleport to Sri Lanka, and the only reason I say that is because I have a really good memory from Sri Lanka, and I'd like to be in that same place.
Okay. Are you allowed to share this memory?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
So it was this memory. It would be the last time when all my whole family members were together, so all 6 of us.
Okay.
And I've always cherished that moment when we were together as a family holiday. So if I had to like kind of go back to any place, I would love to just go there. So yeah,
Amazing.
That's what I would say.
Okay, question 6. What's your favourite song right now?
Shall I look at my phone what I last listened to?
Yeah, do it.
Okay, right.
Look
Let's
at your
have a look.
Android, your horrible Android playlist.
Oh my god, it's beautiful. It's actually quite odd actually. This is gonna sound okay. I was actually listening to a mix.
Who's the
I
mix
was
by?
listening to it was actually by Aaron. I was listening to the Leicester mix. So,
The Leicester mix.
Leicester
Oh,
Horror-
the
yeah, Leicester
the
Horror
Bhangra
mix.
Showdown
That's-
mix. Hang on. Can you send it to me, please?
Yeah, I can send it to you. That's actually the last thing I was listening to. Yeah, it's one of my favourite mixes from this year.
Sick. Okay, Bhangra or Bollywood?
Bhangra.
Bhangra. Favourite movie of all time?
My favourite movie, Guardians of the Galaxy.
Ooh.
Okay, that's a great movie. That is a great movie. I like that one.
Yeah.
Question 9. If you had a spirit animal, what would it be?
I would be a lion.
A lion.
Lioness.
Okay, cool. And final question, number 10, the most important question, and the question that honestly Vic and I ummed and ahed all over. You ready?
Okay.
Pineapple on a pizza or no pineapple on a pizza?
Oh my god. No pineapple on a pizza.
No pineapple on a pizza.
No pineapple on the pizza.
Zara, thank you so much for joining us for this interview. It's been amazing listening to your stories, your anecdotes, and listening to your experiences. And we are forever grateful for all the hard work and the stresses that you've gone through. And honestly, it's nice to hear a smidge of what it might have been like being in your shoes. And I know those are incredibly I was going to say incredibly big shoes to fill, but like from somebody listening and imagining what you look like, that's probably not a good look. But, we're just forever grateful for all the work that you've done, and it's been incredible. Pav, any last things from you?
Yeah, just on behalf of everybody, just thank you for all the hard work that you've done, all the nurses and just everybody. I think you guys have done a smashing job. I would say you guys deserve a round of applause, but you get that every Thursday at 8 p.m. So
Yeah.
one thing I remember saying in our previous episode was, if anybody deserves a pay rise, it's you guys. So hopefully you guys
we
do
really
get one.
hope
But
you
yeah,
guys
thank
get
you for being here, and thank you for taking the time out.
And Vic, any final words from you?
I'm just really happy we had Zara on today, especially as our first guest. Really proud of everything that you've done and what you're going to achieve and growing through, your career.
So Zara, how can we find you on Instagram? What's your handle?
So I have my Instagram handle, which is @nursezara_UK, and I will be starting a YouTube channel soon, hopefully soon. So yeah, it'd be great if people could show their support when that does happen.
Amazing. Anything you'd like to say before we wrap this up?
Yes, I would like to say thank you to all of you guys for giving me this opportunity to even speak about my story, and I think you guys are also doing something really amazing. It's very creative and I love it when people follow that, and you guys are picking up on really important topics, and I really hope that you continue with this. So yeah, I just thank you for this as well, and I hope whoever listens to this will gain better insight, and this is just who I am and what my story is. So thank you for allowing me to share that with everyone.
Thanks, Zara. That's very nice of you to say. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the In the Group Chat podcast with Sunny, Vic and Pav. You've just listened to Nurse Zara. Thank you.